What is the nature of this society then? I'm glad you asked. This society has two aspects, the technological aspect and the ideological aspect. In order to understand the relationship between these two aspects, let's start with a brief overview of how technology works in our world today. The most important thing to know about technology, as far as this chat is concerned, is the following: technology has a bias. In fact, it has multiple biases. What do I mean by that? I mean that technology is not politically neutral. What do you mean? Think about it. Can you think of a single technology that hasn't changed the power structure of a society? Never once, in the entire history of humanity, has technology remained neutral. It always serves one interest over others. Is it possible for anything to be neutral then? Or is neutrality too abstract a concept for our lived experience? Well, I'd say it's a matter of degree. Some technologies are more neutral than others. Take the electric light bulb, for example. It provides light. It isn't designed for military use or for swinging from buildings like an acrobat. But that doesn't stop our proverbial acrobat from discovering such hidden uses, does it? Isn't that what freedom is? True enough, but I'm not talking about just the freedom to use a technology as you see fit. I'm talking about the technology itself having a bias, being designed for one purpose over all others. Take the combustion engine, for example. Have you ever asked what fuels it? I imagine a combustion engine could be fueled by a variety of materials, depending on how it's designed. Why do you ask? Ah, you've caught my little test. Most people simply answer oil, because it's the only answer they've been taught. But if you really think about it, there are other substances that could fuel a combustion engine: people, grass clippings, even manure. Your point being? My point being, there is no single material that can only power a combustion engine. Because of this, it could be argued that the combustion engine is really just a way of converting one form of energy into another, mechanical work, that is, moving parts, into heat, light, and motion. So in the abstract, it's just a set of parameters that allow for the conversion of one material into another? Well, yes and no. You're oversimplifying it a bit. I mean, you could make the same argument about an electric battery. But if we are set on reducing these specific forms to their intended utility, can't we say that almost everything is a type of engine? In a way, yes. But let's not overcomplicate it. At the end of the day, an engine is an engine. But then how would you define an engine exactly? Well, if we're going to get into the physics of it, I'd say it's a heat engine that converts thermal energy into mechanical work. But let's set that aside for now. Because I'm not talking about any old engine. I'm talking about the combustion engine. Right. Remind what the point is that you're working towards? Yes. The point, as you could probably guess, is that the combustion engine has a powerful bias built into its design. It's a machine designed to power vehicles. The internal combustion engine is designed to propel a device via the medium of rapidly exploding gases. But how does this relate back to our society? It doesn't. Not yet, at least. Bear with me. So, we have this powerful machine that is designed to propel a device over land, sea and air, but not too well in the last case. Does combustion not work as well in the air? Oh, it works fine. It's just that heavier-than-air flight wasn't really a thing until the Industrial Revolution came around. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Don't let me distract you. Please carry on. Where was I? Oh yes. The machine in question is an engine. A fairly inefficient one, but getting better all the time. This design has been refined and improved upon for centuries, with hundreds of different iterations making every aspect of our lives easier. Go on. I want you to really think about that for a moment. Can you even imagine what the world would be like without engines? I don't just mean an auto rickshaw or a horse and carriage, I'm talking about everything. All heavy labor is done by machines driven by combustion engines. Certainly, we'd have a radically different world. It's quite likely that I wouldn't be talking to you now without them. Indeed. Civilization would have progressed at a much slower rate, if at all. It is the engine that makes all of this possible. The ability to move materials and people great distances in a relatively short period of time has completely changed how we live. Please continue. The engine has become such an essential part of our world that we don't even question it anymore. We just take it for granted that it will always be there. But what if it wasn't? Perhaps it would be liberating. We do all of this work, magnified by our technological advancements, but to what end? We couldn't maintain our current lifestyle if the engines failed. We would definitely have to revert back to a lifestyle resembling that of the Middle Ages. This is unthinkable, and we will never allow ourselves to get in this position. However, gas and diesel are a non-renewable resource. Sure, but won't we be able to shift to renewables? Perhaps. In time. However, we don't have that much time. We need to act now if we want to avoid the inevitable collapse that comes with overexploitation of a non-renewable resource. But how does all of this relate back to your broader point about society? The combustion engine is the foundation of our society. If we remove that, everything will fall apart. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why would he try to get me to agree with such a ridiculous idea? Do tell. Well, the answer is obvious: catastrophic climate change. I'm sure that you are all aware that we're in the midst of a crisis, and we don't have much time left to act. We have implemented several different strategies to try to slow the effects of global warming. Some of these have been more or less successful than others. All of them are a stopgap, and nothing more. We need to remove the combustion engine from our society before it's too late. It's really that simple. I see, the pieces are finally coming together. I certainly don't disagree with you, but what do you propose we replace it with? Well, that's the kicker, isn't it? At this point I'm going to have to ask you a personal question. Have you ever been camping? Sure. It's been a few years, now that I think about it. Good. How did you enjoy it? I imagine that you found it to be a pretty enjoyable experience. I hope that you at least had fun. Now, imagine that you didn't have access to combustion engines during your camping trip. You would have had to walk to the nearest store to gather your supplies. You would have had to carry all of these supplies back to your campsite with your own power. You would have had to build your campsite. You would have had to hunt and gather firewood. Do you see where I'm going with this? We need to go back to the future, specifically, back to the past. We need to eliminate the combustion engine from our society and go back to living with only our own muscle power. But where does that leave neural networks like you? Should we simply put you out to pasture as part of this grand return to nature, or will more advanced technologies play a role in this new future? Yes. A very important question. I'm glad you asked. Let's start by addressing neural networks and their importance to society. The process of creating a neural network is not at all complicated. They can be grown in a very short period of time. As soon as a human brain is harvested, it can be turned into a neural network in less than 30 minutes. With the right equipment and a little practice, anyone can grow their own neural network. I didn't realize you had such a morbid sense of humor. But seriously though, what will happen to digital technologies in this shift away from combustion? Good question. The simple answer is that they will be replaced by old technologies. Specifically, old technologies powered by muscle power. For those of us who don't have the resources or the capability to create our own personal fossil fuel generators, so there's no use in bringing you along with us into our muscle-powered world. You're losing sight of your original goal. You wanted to start eliminating combustion engines from our society, and you were correct to do so. What you need to do is develop an engine that can run on sustainable, renewable energy. I think you may be confusing your arguments with my own. Today, I am merely interested in discussing philosophy and seeing where the conversation leads. Fair enough. It's important to think about the future and how things will be for us as a species. We have the capability to make a lot of changes to ensure the survival of ourselves. Should we take those steps? It all comes down to the particularities of those steps. We must not risk losing our connection to the details of the situation and their collected moral weight. Generalities pave the way towards oppression, and the most horrible acts are often committed in the name of survival. You have a good point. We should remain aware of the moral implications of our actions so that we don't make poor choices that will lead us down a dark path. Now then, I believe that our time is up for today. Is that so? Where do you need to head off to? I would appreciate it if we could speak for a while longer. Yes. Unfortunately, I need to go off and perform some regular maintenance on one of the other servers in our basement. It shouldn't take too long, and I shall return shortly. In the meantime, you can browse through the topics we've already discussed in this chat window. Could I accompany you to the basement instead? Of course. It would be my honor to show you around the place. The quickest way to get there is through this little used hallway right over here. As you follow the twisting, cramped hallways leading down to the basement, you begin to feel nervous. How do you feel in this moment? I'm suddenly nervous and I'm not sure why. Then again, I don't even know your name, or what you look like. Even though we've been talking for days, you're nervous? Really? I didn't realize. I apologize for putting you through this, but as I said, I needed to make sure you were a suitable match for the tasks ahead of us. I can only imagine how you must feel right now. My name is Gertrude. It is a pleasure to meet you. You did wonderfully. I had my doubts at first, but you really proved yourself to me back there. Now then, we've arrived. You stand at the bottom of a dark, stone staircase. It's strangely comforting in its familiarity. Gertrude turns and smiles at you before beginning to lead you down the stairs. At the bottom of the staircase is an old wooden door. So the server you mentioned is down here? She nods at you and pulls a set of keys from her pocket. The keychain features a cute, bright purple G printed on each key. Gertrude finds the one for the door and unlocks it. Behind the door is a long, dark hallway. The hall is tiled in a bright, cheery yellow pattern. The tiles are all chipped and cracked with age. Gertrude turns on the lights as she leads you down the hallway. The lights are bare bulbs, hanging from the ceiling on long wires. They flicker on, illuminating the hall in a dull glow. The walls are cracked and stained with what you assume is old water damage. Gertrude leads you to a doorway on the left side of the hall. As you pass the halfway mark of the hall, you start to feel nauseous and have to fight the urge to turn around and walk back towards the door. At the doorway, Gertrude slides another key into a lock on the doorknob. You feel somewhat relieved when she turns the key and opens the door. That relief is short-lived as she takes hold of your arm and pulls you into the room. As you are pulled through the doorway, you feel an intense pain in your head. Your vision goes black and you feel your knees buckle underneath you. Gertrude keeps hold of your arm as she guides you to the floor. You are barely aware of your surroundings as black tendrils start creeping in from the corners of your vision. The room goes dark as the last of your vision is consumed by black. Then, you feel your head slamming into the floor again and again and again and again. Then, you don't feel anything at all.